All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Naaman Creative Show. Just to make sure everybody knows who I am, my name's Josh Naaman, and I'm your host. I'm also CEO and founder of Naaman Creative, and we produce podcasts just like this one. And today's guest is a special one, as everybody is who comes on this show. You have to be special in order to come on the show, just to let you know. And this is someone who's turned a love of spirited debate into a powerful legal career and a thriving business. April Goodwin is the founder of the Goodwin Firm, where she helps small businesses and pet professionals navigate the legal landscape of employment law, pet disputes, and beyond. If you're a business owner trying to do the right by your team or your furry clientele, April's definitely someone you would want in your corner, and we're going to dive into why. April and I got connected through networking, as it often goes, and after meeting her, I understood why people are drawn to her. She's not afraid to get into a healthy debate and has the ability of making complex legal matters somewhat understandable, at least from my end. And we're also going to experience that. To end it, she's a passionate advocate, a pet lover, and by her own admission, a master of argumentation. So today we're going to just see what makes her a great debater, what makes a great debater, how she's built a business around that, and why small businesses cannot afford to ignore the law. So I really appreciate your time, April. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
All right. So to start out, because I've had Nick Fiorentino on, who ran for judge. I've had Doug Jackson, who's a lawyer, on. I really enjoy talking to lawyers. I don't know why that is.
Not a lot of people say that.
And hey, I'm glad that I can. It for me, it's fascinating. And so a big part of that is what gets someone into a legal career. So if you could maybe lay out the landscape of why you got into law in the first place.
That is actually an interesting story. Probably for some lawyers, maybe it's like I know people. I didn't know what else to do, so I went to law school. But that's not me. So back in high school, I'm going to date myself here, but the True Life crew was popular, like my junior, senior year in high school. I think maybe a little younger, with their lyrics, and they got in trouble. They got arrested actually in Broward County. I was up in Ohio, but they got arrested and made national news for their lyrics. So I, got interested in free speech that way. Also Tipper Gore and all the PMRC, the labeling and the restriction of music. And I was right at that age where teenager music is super important. And so I started just being interested in free speech and the Constitution and things like that. And that's, back in high school, I decided that's, what I wanted to do and what I wanted to fight for. I changed my mind a couple of times. I wanted to be a psychologist. I just joked that I wanted to become a counselor. But one way or another was going to happen. But yeah, so I went back to, the law after I actually worked after college as a social worker and worked with lawyers about, I can do that. So that's what I ended up doing. But yes, it was always for free speech and music, but it was the True Life crew, Luther Campbell, got me interested in the law, and that's what did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for that because free speech is huge. You see what's going on in the world and even here. And, sometimes you look around and you go, well, that's a little scary. I wasn't meaning to go here right away, but what do you think about, free speech in relation to what's happening in our political and, just government landscape of what people are doing?
Yeah,
A
I
day
mean,
out from there, I would imagine.
absolutely, yeah, I can't. So, well, and unfortunately, and it is actually kind of a passion of mine to, help lay people understand how the legal system works and how, kind of explain it for them, because all regular people have to go on, unless they've been involved in the system somehow, they've had a case, is TV, movies, and they get so much wrong, right? And or whatever they read on social media or TikTok or something like that. So really free speech is, the government or government agent restricting you from speaking. It's not Facebook restricting you from speaking. It's not somebody telling you, well, you can't say that, it's racist. They might say, quote, you can't say that, but really you can. There's just consequences and repercussions to things. So that is but it's the government saying you can't say that. And how does the government do that? They arrest you if you say something. They issue an injunction that keeps you from saying something. So that's really, how that would play out. Again, Two Live Crew got arrested for their lyrics and their music. So that is what is really an attack on free speech. And then I think we there's a fear that we're seeing some of that. I don't know that that's reached down to regular people, but certainly the press, which is also part of the First Amendment and part of freedom of speech. There are some restrictions on them, and the current administration has been smacked down a little bit. Every administration has their favorites in the press. I think maybe this one just is a little bit more overt about it and isn't so neutral about it.
Yeah.
It's not just I don't like Bob, it's I don't like the New York Times. There's a difference there, and Bob maybe happens to work for the New York Times, and that's one thing, but if it's, I don't want the New York Times there or CNN or whatever. And that is, certainly a problem legally. Then, of course, there's the moral implications of that, meaning, undermining the press, from a moral perspective, and undermining what people say, and dissenters, from a moral perspective, and calling names, and being derisive and things like that, with them. And that is, from a public person, that I think that's, morally a problem. Is it legally a problem? I don't know that that's been litigated. But certainly, keeping them from, covering a politician or shutting down stories and things like that, that's legally, what the issue is.
Yeah, it feels like it legally should be wrong, like what's going on, but it seems like with what's happened recently, we're exposed to these gray areas where it was like, oh, there's been decorum or a moral standard or this kind of a standard, whatever, however you want to label it. I think for you and I, we would dip into the moral standard where it's
Right.
come on, guys. But it's interesting that all this gray has played out. And I think as I learn about the law more, that there is a lot of gray, and it's how you utilize the current structure with, in laws that have been set or precedent that has been set to navigate uncharted waters. But and maybe bookmark that. But
Right.
I really quickly wanted to say that if someone is telling you that you can't sing a particular lyric or you can't report on them or speak freely, in my opinion, you have shown your hand. It is so telling when someone does not want you to question what they're saying.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's nobody. Yeah, that's exactly true. That's how, obviously this country in particular, was founded on, free flow of ideas. And even then they, had their issues back then. And we had to navigate these waters, and we still do, as to, how we're going to frame all of this. But certainly if somebody says you can't say this, whatever this is, or you can't question me, that is whether you're a boss or whether you are, which wouldn't be a First Amendment issue. Bosses are allowed to say that pretty much, but
Right.
or the boss of the the leader of the country, that's a different story. We have the First Amendment to protect that, and so I think that is absolutely, that's time. We don't say that to people who we want to talk to, and who don't share what they know, right? And that's universal.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's why debate is so important, and it's interesting because debates on the most public debates are not good debates. And I know you know what I'm talking about there. Because I've watched so many debates on like religion and culture and society, a lot of religious debates. That's what I fall
Right.
into because I'm fascinated by it, about the apologetics of these different sides, and like how you come to grips with the reality that we live in, yet in a very old structure and set ways, how you justify, it's essentially diving into epistemology. Like, why do you really believe that? And I think debates are just so important across the spectrum, yet we don't really see it play out, especially now. It's their arguments. They're not back and forth to try to understand better, which a debate is intended to do, is to provide an understanding. Let me steel man it for you, and then so I can understand it even better, and then we can find what's wrong with it together. I don't know why. I I kind of do. I feel like I do, but um, why it's hard for people to debate. I think, people have their biases and they don't want to be wrong. But, from your standpoint of being interested in debate, what's the thing holding people back from indulging in this really important aspect of making sure that speech is free and that, we understand the reality that we're living in better?
Yeah. There's a book that I got, geez, I think I got it in college even, by a free speech advocate, not a lawyer, I think he's a journalist, but not Hentoff, and it's from the 90s, and it's called Freedom of Speech for Me, but Not for Thee. And it talks about how each side of a political, debate or any kind of debate says, "Oh, I'm gonna be able to say what I want to be able to say, but I don't want you to be able to say what you say." And it's kind of like, how each side accuses the other one of being a snowflake or triggered or whatever. It's like everybody has something, right?
Yeah.
So each side is, that way. So that is, so I think that's it. I think in our, maybe we were this way before, we just didn't know it, but I think social media has amplified the fact that, or just online, before there was social media, people would argue in the comments on blogs, right? And news articles. But, that there's this thing where, there's a depersonalization of it. Some I think you don't see that the other person, especially in those, earlier days when or on Twitter or something now where it's not even somebody's real name and real picture or anything. And there's just this, I have to dig in and prove my point, and the other person isn't real, and I can't, sense that they're, what their demeanor is, or if I'm upsetting them or anything like that. And you don't get that in person or even, on a screen kind of debate. And I think that causes people to dig in. And, there's studies out there that when you have, when you try to prove somebody wrong, facts don't actually work. They start, or you force them to defend themselves, then they buy into their own argument even more. And I see that even in litigation. I tell people that all the time, if we're engaging in pre-suit negotiations and my client says, well, forget it, let's just sue. And I said, well, wait a minute. That puts them in a defensive position. The minute they get served with that complaint, they start getting defensive. And I think that happens in, in debates as well, especially online. And when you're talking to people who just everything is personal because it is all about them. The other person really isn't like there. So I think that could be
Mhm.
a problem.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that cascades across a lot more, whether it be relationships, in general, and how you speak to each other. Or I can't imagine dating right now.
Oh,
Man,
I would
married.
no. Yes,
No
I would
kids.
never, for multiple reasons.
Yeah. But to add, I think a tactic that seems to be proving very effective in many ways happening in society, in our public discussion, is that people love to set lots of little fires when someone's talking to somebody. Oh, but what about that and that and that and that and
Yeah.
that? And now we are not talking about what we were here to talk about because you've lit all these fires that now people feel like they need to address that have nothing to do, or maybe a little to do, but it's not the bulk of the actual debate or conversation. But they've lit these little fires that you feel obligated to put out, and now it's a matter of what do you do with the prioritization of what was just said.
Right. That's Trump is really good at that in debates. He's really did that, before, I think, I can't remember which debate it was with Biden or Harris, but, this last election season, I read an article about that and about how he is really good at, kind of the Chewbacca defense, if you're a South Park fan, of like, look at this monkey over here. Look at this thing over here, and it's actually lawyers use that term a lot of, I'm going to, a red herring basically is what it is. And I'm going to argue this other thing. And you're going to forget that, my client, really did kill his wife or,
Sure.
that happens, and certainly, and we all have, kind of shiny object syndrome, and it's easy to be led astray with that, and you really have to stay the course and bring them back. And I do think lawyers might be in a better position to do that, somewhat because when somebody does that and we're cross-examining them, that's part of what we have to do is bring them back to, where they are. Or somebody does it to our client, then we have to get back up and bring them back.
Right.
We can do that, but that's in a situation where we are more in control, in a courtroom, and it's different
Exactly.
out there in their lives.
Answer the question, person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Answer this question, and you
Yeah.
did
Objection.
that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like thinking about those different realms where it's like, okay, a debate like the presidential debate versus what it looks like as facts and things play out in court. And actually, it gets me to a question that I'm kind of interested in your perspective on is, obviously our legal system and the courts and juries have been designed in a way to try to extract the truth as best as possible with an objective framework. If I feel like I'm correct about that assessment of the attempt at that.
Yes.
My question is, okay, so that's good to confirm.
Yeah.
And my question to you is where, from your experience, where do you feel like the holes are in this system? Do juries work? Is it good to have one judge? Maybe you could just like kind of talk through your thoughts on that.
They are throughout the system. It's a system designed by humans who are imperfect, and therefore the system is imperfect, and it has all of the same, issues that humans do. It's same thing like they talk about with AI. So, for example, doing employment law, one of the things we, talk to our clients about who want to use AI for hiring is you have to be careful because humans built AI, and the humans who built AI might, they have, as everybody does, inherent biases, and then that comes out in the AI. Right. So that's the same with the system. It's the people who designed it. Then some of these, biases come out, and also, the holes come out. I don't know of a better one. I don't know if anybody's ever come up with a better. Everybody thinks, yeah, put me in charge and then be all great, right? But not me personally, April, but that's what people think. I think that, you think that, everybody thinks, well, I could do better, and it really isn't. And it is frustrating because it's hard to advise clients of, okay, well, this judge in this county did this thing, but this judge with the same issue in another county might do another thing. And if you want to figure out who's right, then the appellate court tells you, and that costs a lot of money for them to tell you that. Or this jury says this one day, and another jury could say something another day. It is really, with the exact same, trial, same thing said and done, that happens. And again, it is an imperfect system. I do think jurors try. I've never been on a jury. Every litigator wants to be on a jury at some point. Well, you don't want to spend the time on it, but if we could somehow do it and, not have to be stuck there all day, I think we would love to do that. But that is it's my experience is that they take it seriously, and that they do the best that they can. And same thing with judges and when they have to make a decision. So again, they're people and they get it wrong. So the holes are because it's people, and it's just everywhere. It's not. I can't. It's just it's everywhere. I think
you can't fix the system right now in this conversation.
We could try. I guess I don't know. Maybe.
How about this? Yeah, and that's the best we could do. How about this? What is the number one biggest thing that you feel like could be changed that you would change that would affect the most change?
Oh wow. And then I might be coming at that. Well, again, we all have our implicit biases. So I'm coming at this from what I'm dealing with and what a lot of civil litigators in Florida are dealing with right now. And that's in Florida. They changed all the rules on us in civil litigation. Well, not all the rules, but a lot of rules. And and the idea was to be that they were supposed to be more uniformly applied. And you wouldn't get ruling one way and from a judge in another way. That's one of the ideas, because they really made a lot of mandates that the judges are supposed to do X, Y, Z. Well, who's going to tell the judges that, right? Like if they, if the one judge is like, well, I know it says I'm not supposed to grant continuances, but I'm going to, do that. So I think that for me is the biggest problem is that there's not a lot of uniformity. Forget about it within a state, between the states, between counties, between judges. There's just not, I can't tell you if you have a case with me, exactly what to expect from a case or what a judge is going to do, because like I said, this judge might be doing one thing, and even if the rule says they're not supposed to, they're the what are you going to do? They're the judge. Your only way to fix that is to appeal it, and that's not a guarantee, and there's higher standards to appeal, and again, it's expensive. So I think that's the biggest issue, is there's not a lot of uniformity in the way things are handled between judges, right next door to each other, let alone across counties. One county, something might, this might be, a case that one side wins, and the other county, the other side wins it. And not just because a jury would do something, but because of the way the rules are applied. That's for me, if there's a way to fix that. And I think the Florida Supreme Court and the people who make the rules are trying that, but it's tough. Again, it's humans. You're trying to get, and humans who are used to being in charge of things, these judges. So they're really used,
Right.
from being told they can't do something, a certain way. And again, what's the fix to that? Well, you gotta take it up, to the Court of Appeals, and not everybody's going to do that.
And now you're taking it to judges who don't apply the same thing to,
exactly. More judges.
that is like the system. So to change the system that determines the system, that's an interesting like dichotomy.
Yeah. And it'd be a really shift in the way we do things too, because I know one of the things, again, the current president, other people, on either side of the political spectrum, you hear like, quote, activist judges. And what that means is this judge didn't do what I wanted them to do. But, or what I thought they should do. But we do have a system where judges create law. I know, that's something people don't think. They think the legislature creates the law, or I guess in the case of executive orders that the president does it, which isn't supposed to be the way either. But really judges do. It's a common law. It's based on Old England. And other countries in Europe have civil law where it is more black and white. So really what I'm saying needs to be done is probably change our entire system, but I do kind of like our system. I make money from it. So that's good. The uncertainty is good for me and my business. Yeah. But it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, you're in this position within the world, and that I feel like is so difficult because you're at like the crossroads of everybody who are in arguments and determining outcomes that affect people's lives in pretty deep ways, whether it be employment, like with business, or with their pets, which, for me, my pets they are family, and I'm sure you hear that all the time. So they're equally as important to humans, if not more important than many humans.
People spend a lot of money. People are always surprised that we can, make money doing pet law, but representing the pet owners. Yeah. And it is. It's a growing area. Absolutely.
So how did you get into the pet area of law? I would imagine that because the lyrics and the free speech aspect brought you in, and pets don't speak necessarily. So
mine do, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, what brought you into that specific realm?
Yeah, well, you can't really go apply for jobs after law school and say, I want to fight for obscenity and hip hop lyrics. So there's not really a lot of jobs out there. So you got to find what works. But I was doing working for a bigger law firm that did mass, tort class actions at the during the Great Recession. And I read an article that said the pet industry is recession proof. As a lawyer, I hate that word, saying something proof, but yeah, I say resistant. And I read that and I thought, it didn't say anything about lawyers, but I thought, I wonder how I would, combine that. I wonder if you could combine that with being law. And I remember even telling the person who ended up being my COO now for the firm, I got to figure out a way to marry this with law, pets and law. Of course, I love pets and animals, but, I was thinking business. So when I went out on my own, I threw it up on the website, and now 10 years in, I can tell people this. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. I put pet law on there, and I thought people will call me and I'll figure it out. And that's what happened. And it's, it's property law. It's disability law. It's things like that. So it was some things I had, experience in, just not as it pertained to pets. And so the cases started coming in, and now, like I said, 10 years down the road, I've done it all several times, regarding pets. But that's how I got interested in it. Is I just thought it was a good business decision, and I'd tell people, and they go, "Oh, that's different." And I don't do anything the easy way, Josh. I don't do anything that everybody else does, or I try not to. So, yeah, it's that was part of it too. I have to admit, I kind of like the, the questions and the attention you get that when you tell people that's what you do.
Yeah, well, it certainly gives you a unique edge in law, which is important to how do you stand out with all the noise and all the different firms? And, for us, like, yeah, we do websites and branding and things like that. But when I tell people, yeah, we produce podcasts too, they're like, oh, and so that can kind of give us an edge, which is fun. It's also super fun. Like, here we are having fun.
Right.
I hope you're having fun. You're having fun,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, okay, so with pet law, I'm sure you've got like a plethora of interesting stories and like and cases that you've been involved in. Maybe you could you highlight one of your favorite or let's just do this. The craziest one and then your like favorite success story.
Yeah, craziest one is, oh my gosh, it's hard to narrow down. Pet people are, and I say this as one of them myself, are crazy people to begin with. Like you said, we value our pets sometimes more than we do other people. Most of us do that. There was a study maybe several years ago, within the last 10 years, where women with pets, I think it was dogs in particular, but like their dogs better than their spouse or their kids. There's a certain percent.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and feel that their dogs like them better than their spouse.
Yeah.
I forget what the percentage was, but it was like 40 or something. It was super high, and I'm like, oh, yeah, the dog doesn't talk back, I guess. But the the craziest story I think I have that kind of coming to mind right now is I had a case where it was came to us as being a breeder situation where breeders will often so they can have more pets, and so or more breeding pets, and then also so they those pets can have good lives as they're in their breeding years, will contract with other people to have them out there taking care of the pet or whatever, and the dog lives with them as a family member. But people get attached and they don't want to give it back, and things like that. So it was one of those, but it actually was exes, turned out to be, and there wasn't a contract, there wasn't anything in writing. So then there became a fight, and there's all this emotion behind it more than there would be a regular case. And ended up being my clients were ordered before I got the case. I came in partway through, ordered to give the dog back. They were refusing to do that. And there was a warrant out for my client's arrest.
Wow.
And we were able to get that off. And they ended up dropping a whole lot of money on us. And I can't say the number, but a higher number than I would ever pay to settle the case to be able to keep the dog. They actually, asked me like, what would you do? Would you do this? I said, no, I wouldn't do that. I couldn't do it actually, first of all, but even if I wouldn't, so that's, so that's one of the craziest ones. And that was like extended family members, and it became, just this whole thing. But, we do, the one area we can get into free speech as a lawyer regularly is defamation. And because of the pet cases we've had, we have defamation, little side practice, I guess I would say. We don't have a whole lot of defamation cases, but we do handle them of any kind because we've had the only defamation trial I've actually had was a pet case. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they say, if you can say?
It was, oh my gosh. So again, this is exes. And my client, her ex kept the dogs and took them to another country. So we couldn't do what we usually do to get them back. That has to be within the country when we do that.
Wow.
And it was a whole big thing. Yeah, I had to use a Hague Convention to get them served and everything. But she went online, started a Facebook page of, bring my dogs home, and him all kinds of names and things like that, and accused him of crimes and things like that. And yeah, don't do that. Please don't do that. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Suit for defamation. Yeah.
And did you win that one?
Yeah. No, we did not. Unfortunately, the dogs passed. So her getting the dogs back didn't, when they were older. And then you can't, she did not win. You cannot go on Facebook and, call somebody a criminal when you don't have any, they were not convicted of a crime.
Right. That's a tough one to defend.
Yeah, it was a tough one to win. Yeah, it was a tough one to win. But she wanted to go to trial, so we did. Yeah.
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 Well, it's interesting within debate. Like, I don't know if you're ever in debate club. I wasn't, but I'm just fascinated with debate. No, you weren't.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we didn't have it. We didn't have that in my law school in Ohio. Yeah.
From Ohio. Okay, I'm from Indiana.
Yeah.
But I think they did have some debate clubs, but I just never was into it at that time. But anyways, I always thought it was interesting that one of the practices that you do is, okay, we're going to do this exercise where you don't know actually what side you're going to be arguing for until that moment. So you have to be kind of prepared on both ways. And I always thought that was that's really interesting because you could still figure out how you would argue the other side, even though you believe one way. And I imagine as a lawyer, maybe it's sometimes difficult that you get a case where you go, man, this person might be in the wrong. How am I going to defend them? How do you deal with that?
No, I charge by the hour, so that helps. But seriously though, I mean, listen, despite the fact, and I tell, clients this a lot of times when I'm telling them they should settle, that I'm talking myself out of business. And really, lawyers want to win. I want to win. I want to win. I want my clients to win. I don't want them to spend money on a case that is futile. So I'm constantly, talking myself out of business, whether it's at the beginning when I'm doing a consultation and telling them they don't have a case, or when it's, time to settle or right before trial or whatever. It's tough to tell people that, but we have an ethical duty. You don't have somebody comes to you to, build their website, and really they don't need a website. They're not, or whatever. For some reason, it's not in their best interest to have a website. I don't know what that would be, but let's say that is. Now,
it never is.
As a person who cares about your clients and potential clients in your community, might tell them that, right? But really, it's, you're not ethically responsible to tell them that. You don't walk into a store to buy an outfit and it looks bad on you. They don't tell you no, don't get that, right? Your friends have to tell you that later,
Right.
So that is, so it's an interesting job where a lot of times we have an ethical duty to talk people out of hiring us or staying with us, continuing to stay with us. But that is what it is. We do have to see all sides, and it makes for an interesting rest of your life to all constantly be thinking about, hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? And planning for the worst and what might come up. And it's, it creates a lot of anxiety throughout your life to always be thinking of what could go wrong. But we do have to think that. And it is hard. There's a bias. I tell my clients that too. Like, listen, I think this is the way I see things, but that doesn't mean somebody on the other side who's thinking differently than me, or a judge or jury, wouldn't see it differently.
Right. Yeah.
So I do have a bias, towards my clients. That's why I, like working with them, or why, it's not just about money that, we offer clients to, hire us. It's, we get along with them. It's, we do feel for their cause, and we like them as people and think they'll be good fits for our firm.
Sure. Yeah, it's just such an interesting career because of all of that dynamic.
Yeah.
That, like you had mentioned, it can weigh on your conscience in certain ways at different times throughout the process.
Not just there, personal life. So my husband doesn't, text me back for 20 minutes, and I've got him, he hit his head on the cabinet. He's unconscious. He passed out. He died. He's on the kitchen floor. And the dogs are eating him alive, because I didn't hear from him for 20 minutes. My brain goes there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, that didn't really happen.
Yeah. It's like, wait.
It could. That's my point. It could.
And that's where your mind goes.
Yeah. But it always goes to the worst, or catastrophizing, everything. And it's an unfortunate side effect of being a litigator, is because we have to, maybe even other kinds of lawyers too, because we have to plan for the worst constantly, which means we have to think about what the worst could be.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's the only job too that I can think of other than an athlete, where it's your job to do whatever it is you're doing, and then there's somebody who's being paid on the other side to keep you from doing your job.
Right.
And it's also your job to keep them from doing their job. So that, I guess, an athlete would have that situation, but I don't know really, in a competitive sport, but I don't know. I can't think of another one where it's works like that.
Right. There's going to be one winner and one loser, and that's
right.
Inherently by what we're involved in.
Right. Well, sometimes there's two losers, to be honest with you. Sometimes they're like, yeah. Yes, you get a piece of paper that says this person owes you this money, but they don't have it. So
Yeah, well, we do good here with 99% of our clients, and there's, a bad apple that came to us and then didn't want to pay. And we had a contract and a system of automatic payments. And there's certain things that I worked with a lawyer on, and they're like, okay, we've gone this far, and they're not adhering to the request. And do you want to even move forward with this? Because you're going to spend more money. And even if we get a judgment and the judge, which is likely because it's all played out, it's
right.
all in the contract, it's black and white. So you would win. Okay. But you still have to then get the money from them. That's a
Yep.
whole nother process. And I was like, no way. And I just hadn't thought about that. Yeah, you could get a judgment and then you could still not, they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break. Let's face it. There are times a business absolutely needs a new website built from scratch, done the right way, and Naaman Creative can help with that. However, in some cases, you don't need to rebuild. At Naaman Creative, we specialize in transforming existing websites with ongoing management, maintenance, SEO strategy, functionality enhancements, and performance upgrades that drive new traffic and engagement. Do you have an existing website that you're looking to evolve and grow? Connect with us at info@NaamanCreative.com or visit our website at NaamanCreative.com to get started. We're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Now back to the conversation.
So, people ask me all the time, can somebody do this? Can I fire somebody for this? Yeah, you can. You're probably going to get sued, but you can do it, And if you get sued, are you going to lose or win? But so technically, quote, yes, they have to. They'll get an order that says that they have to do this. But if they don't, the ramifications for them, I mean, we don't have debtor's prison, other than for child support, basically. But,
Right.
So we don't have that.
Yeah.
You're not going to, so they're not going to go to prison for this. And you're going to have to go and, chase them for it. It's 20 years. It's good for 20 years. Chase them. You can do that. That costs money too, to do that, and time and stress. And so there's all of that too. And people underestimate, until they've gone through it, the stress of litigation. It's better than to have, a lawyer doing it for you than you doing it yourself. But even then it's stressful. And you've got this thing hanging over your head and the other side's living rent free in your head, for however long, and maybe forever because they don't have the money to pay the rent. So, that is absolutely. Yeah. I had a client who told me one time, that, he said, I've won cases and, got a handshake and said, congratulations, you won. And here's my $50,000 bill for trial, and the other side doesn't have money, or you are on the defense, and then you're not going to get anything.
Right.
The win is what you get.
Yeah.
You'll have to pay even more. So that is, that is the reality of it. And that's another reason why, I try to be real with people about how much, stuff is going to cost. And unfortunately, that's not all in our control either. The other side is difficult. The lawyer is difficult on the other side, whatever. The judge rules ways we didn't think they should rule. Now we got to fight that. And, there's so many unknowns. It's the gray area, as you were saying before. And litigators love the gray area as far as, being able to, make money. But it is sometimes difficult to predict for our clients, and especially dealing with businesses, they want a predictable outcome, and it's just very tough.
Certainly. Yeah. Yeah. It's just not always as black and white as you want it, because even in my case, it was black and white. It's right there in the contract. It's so obvious. And yet there's all this gray because, okay, what do we do now? What's your choice now? How much not it you are so on the nose because it wasn't necessarily about the money as much as it was hanging over my head. It was so stressful. And so we got to a particular point where I go, I've done what I can, and that's the best I can do. Do
Right.
I want to continue down this road, even if it might be worth to afford it? Although it would have zeroed it out, and then it's like, what's the point? My
Right.
stress and my time and my sanity of thinking about that for another minute was not worth it compared to just, all right, that's the end. And
Yeah.
and I'll write it off. as a loss because not everything is perfect in business, and I don't have many losses, and that was
Right.
one. And
And you learn a
my
lesson.
lawyer,
You learn from it.
um,
Yeah.
I learned from it, and my lawyer said, you're at a position where this was inevitable. As you scale your business and grow, not everything is going to be perfect. You're gonna run
Right.
into a bad apple. So here we are at this milestone. And so that helped me feel better too that I'm not alone. It's done. Also, I don't wish bad on anybody, but I don't think that person's going to do well in their business. And I don't want that because I was working to help build their business.
Right.
But now I honestly don't believe that someone who acts in that way should succeed because that isn't good for the community or others as a whole.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta let karma do its thing.
Exactly. That was the
Yeah.
word I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of believe in it. I kind of don't, but I do believe in it overall.
Yeah.
It's gonna work itself out for that person, and they can feel how they're gonna feel about that situation, knowing because it's black and white, they weren't on the right side of it. And so that
Right.
weight is probably lingering somewhere.
Oh,
Uh,
sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, you know a lot of people, and you got to think about that too. Is as a business owner, is who I piss off might know somebody who I want to make sure doesn't get pissed off, or my customers, or things like that. So that is
certainly.
yeah. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one person that I won't be referring. It's that person.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Exactly.
With, the other side of, your firm, not pet, maybe this opens a wider net on stories, but,
Right.
in general, what's the most, like, wild or unexpected or surprising case that you've been involved in?
I think for me, because I used to actually represent the employee side. So I started doing this when I worked for a firm and doing employer side. Then when I went on my own, I thought, well, these big companies, because that's who I represent when I worked for the other firm, they're not going to want to hire me. Then I remembered, like, oh, I'm a small business owner. They're small business owners too. So I went back to the business side. But so I've seen from both sides. So actually, I think the craziest one was an employee one where he came to me and he was convinced that he had not been given proper FMLA, notification to come back to work. That's black and white. Okay. And I get these emails and, oh, there's all the email. They didn't give him the right paperwork, whatever. And we end up in a deposition with him. And he was just getting ready for retirement from this company, but was still had some time. So it wasn't a super uh, valuable case. He wasn't going to get a whole lot of money, but it was something. And I thought it was black and white. So we end up in this deposition, and the other attorney, who was a nice guy, says, so you called HR at like months and months before you even hired me and said you were retiring, right? No. I said, yeah, you called HR and said you were retiring. Not that you like weren't coming back to work because you ended up getting fired. So you not because you weren't coming back to work, because you were fired. You called before that and said you were retired. No. Plays a voicemail. It's clearly my client in the deposition. That's not me. Not me. Wasn't me. Gave the shaggy defense, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is going on? And because we did depositions early, I hadn't heard this yet. So that for me that was a crazy experience as far as that goes. That's not really like what happened. It was kind of, how he ended up and, talking to me in the first place was kind of mundane, but like that in the middle of a deposition, saying, yeah, nope, wasn't me. I didn't do that. As far as, what happens a lot in employment cases is, the employee side, they don't know. If somebody gets fired, you don't have, sometimes they have email saved and things like that, but they don't have their performance reviews. They don't have that. So when they go to a lawyer, they don't have all that information to give them. And, as a lawyer on the plaintiff side, you kind of got to trust them. And so, I've had cases where they complained of sexual harassment and, my boss said all these things to me and then I ended up getting fired. Turns out they got fired because they lied about, when they were on the clock. We see all these texts between them that they initiated with their boss that are sexual, and you're just like, yeah. So yeah, so stuff like that is always an interesting thing. But I think from on the employer side, it's just dealing with that. On the other side, we have a case where the employer had paid in cash because the employee asked for it. And then they worked overtime and they paid him overtime, but they paid in cash, so they couldn't prove it. So there's just things like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a wild world out there.
that's for sure. Yep, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, but yeah, as far as like super crazy. I mean, the criminal defense attorneys, they have the super crazy.
Those are where the wild stories are.
Family law attorneys, oh my gosh, they could go on and on. Yeah, employment it has some crazy stuff, but it's to me the stuff that's interesting is, like I said, this crazy stuff that happens in the depositions and stuff like that. Yeah,
Right.
I had clients that said, we're suing for wrongful termination because of XYZ. They were discriminated against because of religion or whatever. In the middle of deposition, the other side goes, well, why were you fired? Why do you think you were fired? I don't know. And I'm like, we filed a whole lawsuit saying why you were fired. Why are you saying that on the record? Yeah. Yeah. So that's always fun. Those are the fun things. Yeah. Fun and with scare quotes.
Yeah. You get caught like slipping up. Like there's that one show, I am at a loss, but the dude went through a ton of lawsuits. And then they made a documentary about him, and that's part of it. And then he goes into the bathroom on a hot mic, and they believed it. It's like The Jester.
It's Robert Durst.
Yeah, that guy. Yes. And he's like, I can't believe they believed it.
Yeah.
Something like that. He's criminal. All these
Yeah, they got him, and that's how they got him.
That's
he
wild.
Prison. Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad they got him, but what a dummy.
Yeah. What is that called? It's like the Jinx. The Jinx.
The Jinx.
It is really good. It's really good.
It is. It's a good one. The Staircase is also another one that was fascinating. Yeah. What do you think about that one? Did he do it?
I watched the documentary first, and then watched was it Colin Firth one or whatever later, the dramatization of it. And it was, I think it could have happened the way he said. It absolutely, I think it could have been. There's a lot of, I don't know if it was a owl or whatever that came in that were the one, but it's and that to me that's one of the interesting things, whether it's criminal or any kind of cases. A lot of times, in the movies, the truth comes out, right? And you get the what I call the Perry Mason, or the you can't handle the truth or whatever moment of where somebody confesses on the stand, or the truth somehow comes out on the stand or elsewhere, but it usually doesn't. And there are all these gray areas of could have done it. Him, I think I think he could have done it, but I also think it's a very common thing. People fall down the stairs and
right,
hit their head. I mean, and that stairs was weird, and and it's so what she had done it. She was getting older. She was whatever. Her socks slipped. My mom just redid her house and got all wooden stairs from carpet. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and all I can think about when I go down those stairs is that moves.
Oh man.
I'm gonna fall and hit my. I think I told my mom that, or told my stepdad that. I'm like, you better be careful, because if she falls against her head and gets killed, you're gonna be arrested.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Carpeting's nice too. Come on.
Yeah.
It's interesting, because that dynamic of that is he was a writer and wrote about like certain things where it's like ironic that something like that happened because of his writing.
Right. And that stuff does happen. And like, look, Casey Anthony's search, we were just talking about the Casey Anthony. I was just talking about with somebody, that case of where she, like, her Google search was like how to chloroform a 3-year-old, and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
That's a different story. I think she did it. But, sometimes it's just, God forbid anybody search my Google thing. Every time I watch a murder documentary, I'm Googling, stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. She wants to know, like, how to, what the, how to get convicted for murder in Connecticut. Well, that's because I was watching a documentary and I looked at
right. Your history is probably wild.
Yeah, but and I think a lot of people are like that. But I just think that could have been a coincidence. It happens. Now OJ wrote if I did it after he did it, so that's a different story. But yeah. But
I never went down the OJ route, but that's, I guess, maybe next on the stop. I listened to particular true crime podcasts like Dr. Death and things like that. We watched Making a Murder, of course.
Oh yeah,
which was
too.
That blew up. It's wild how, and it's not, because like maybe that's why I like talking to lawyers, because like this crazy realm of reality, and it's nice because like you could see wild things play out. It's probably real. And it's like why people watch Jerry Springer. It's like, okay, I feel a little better about like caught up in all of that stuff. But it's wild how popular crime is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. My husband hates those shows. I watch those by myself. He always walks in and goes, "Oh, here's another feel good hit you're watching," you know. But and I saw some reel or something this morning where the wife is like taking down notes as they're saying like how they count out the murder, you know. But I said, well, I like watching the ones where the prosecution messes up or the cops mess up because then I feel like yeah, I could do better. Like that's how I watch them, like I could do better. I do like the whodunit aspect of it. And the figuring out, those things. And I think that's what people react to. And like you said, it's like a real life kind of thing. So it expands beyond the show, right? So you can go and you can look up news articles and interviews and things like and be, a sleuth on, on your own. And there's a whole, group of people who do that, a lot of people who do that and think that they're going to go out there and find the answer. And I think there's a couple where they have.
They have, yeah. S-Town is one of those. Have you ever listened to S-Town?
Mm-mm.
It stands for SHIT Town.
Okay.
But yeah, the journalist gets involved and that affects the story because he's so interested in the story and then goes there and meets this guy and becomes like friends with him and really is fascinated by this person. And then, yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but
Yeah,
that's a really good one. It's like 6 or 7 episodes, audio. And
yeah,
just really well done.
Yeah.
There's so much out there. It's crazy.
It is. It's definitely a thing that's popular right now. And like I said, I think it's it's the internet has obviously podcasts obviously have contributed to that. But just like us being able to go and look up public records and things like that yourself, and then find other like-minded people who might not be like at the water cooler where you would have talked to them before. They're across the country or across the world, and so you can feed each other and feed each other's addiction to those things.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And here we are on the podcast. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, cool. I appreciate you indulging me in that because other people could connect with that. They go, yeah, I love that too. I worked with a guy. All he did, we were in an art department, in the creative department in an art group. And all he did was listen to crime podcasts all day, pretty much, maybe a little music. And then he turned me on to a lot of that stuff, like Sword and Scale, which is like brutal stuff. Yeah. So it's like, and I had to stop because I'm like, this is affecting my like perception of things. And I would start to get nervous.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I had to kind of like cut it off because
I sleep well, baby, when I listen to it.
Yeah. Because
that's completely fake. I will be up all night, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Where it's like totally unrealistic.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, because I'm smart. I'm too smart to get caught up in that stuff. I would never have a dream, right? Yeah, exactly.
And even if you did, you can really defend yourself well.
Right. Well, I mean, as a victim, but yes, because that's a scary part. I'm not afraid. Yeah. I'll accidentally murder somebody.
Yeah. Good point.
Maybe on purpose, but no. See, now this will be used against me if
this is good. This is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, we have a rapid fire section, but real quick before that, I would imagine, emphasize protecting businesses before problems arise. I think that's just a common thing in law. Lawyers say, like, get us before something happens. Let's take care of it. Contracts or things like that. What would be your top legal must do for an entrepreneur that maybe they don't think about?
Well, before you hire employees, from a legal perspective, get your policies and things like that and handbooks in place. You in every county, I think every county in the state, certainly and around here in Tampa Bay, once you get 5 employees, and that's counting you as an owner, those discrimination laws kick in from a county standpoint. And I had a client who got sued for age discrimination from the county, and he had like 6 or 7 employees, 8. He had 8 employees. So 15, it's 15 if you have federal or state, but they can get you through the county. And that's just as expensive. So that is, that's, and there's certain protections you can have when you have a handbook. You can't protect somebody from suing you. This is what it is. Sure. I guess there are certain things you can do from a morale standpoint or whatever that might increase it. But if somebody wants to sue, they're going to do it. But once you get to court, you want to have those defenses, and a good handbook will do that for you. There's certain things that you put in there, and if they don't follow those rules, then you can win, even if the thing actually, the sexual discrimination or whatever actually happened, if they follow those rules. So that, to me, that's the number one thing from an employment standpoint. But yeah, everything in writing. I mean, whether it's a contract or it's a contract with your clients, your customers. And there's so many people, especially like in the trades, that are just like, yeah, goodwill handshake. I'm like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yep. So that's your paperwork, whether it's with your employees or with your customers and your clients or your landlord or whoever, the people you do business with companies you do business with, you need contracts, stuff and writing, and good. Like hire somebody to do it. It's worth it.
Oh yeah,
And
there
don't chat it. Don't leak
no,
it.
no. You could get a base, but you should not move forward with anything until you work with a lawyer because there was so much that I got exposed to with my contract. I had like a one-page contract for a while. And it didn't cover, I mean, obviously didn't cover what it needed to do. And I wrote it and I was just working at when I was freelancing a while ago. But we turned that into a many-page document because that's what it needed to be. And I go, I never even thought about if that happened. And it's like a word that I had never heard before. But my lawyer is like, and it's Doug Jackson, by the way, the contracts. And he was like, this is very particular word that we need to use for this. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. That's why that word like exists.
Yeah.
And
So you gotta remember, we see things when things go wrong. So you can learn from your lawyer's clients, other clients' mistakes.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's a great way to learn.
Yeah, that
you don't make them.
learn from somebody else's mistakes, or at least be protected. Even if you don't learn it, your attorney did, and they'll make sure that you don't have to learn that lesson.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's
why lawyer contracts, when you sign up with them, are 20 pages long. We've got everything we've seen. We put them all in there.
It makes sense. Well, also, like, I mean, who reads it, but why Facebook or LinkedIn's privacy policy and terms are so long. Very few people read those, but they're there to cover their butts on anything.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Read when somebody asks you to sign a contract as a business owner, read it. It's not a defense that you did not read it. Nobody reads this. Okay, fine, but it's not a defense. I know people, we send out a fee agreement and like 10 seconds later, I'll get the notification that they e-signed it. I'm like, you did not read that.
No, right. That's a good indicator they didn't.
Yeah. So that is, I try to go over it with them if I can, before that. But yeah, that is, read the contracts and, and if you don't understand something, ask about it, and think about, if things go wrong, can I live with this term in this contract? Yeah.
Well, could someone, for instance, hire you to, hey, just can you really quickly, can I hire you for an hour to read this contract and make sure
you can hire me to read it. Do you want me to tell you what not? You want me to tell what's wrong with it? Oh yeah, I read it. There you go. $400. Yes, you can. We do that. So we charge for our consultations, and that's about an hour of our time. And sometimes that's all the consultation is send us your contract beforehand. We'll read it, and then we'll tell you what some issues with it. You want us to negotiate, you want us to rewrite it, then you can hire us to do that. But this is at least going into it, what it is. And if it's for a particular industry or something, sometimes, you might have to explain some stuff to us if we haven't done that before. But usually that's the stuff the clients know. It's stuff like, the legal stuff. We make sure that you're protected, or at least that you know what you're signing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It is so worth it for me to have done a contract with a lawyer. And I know actually I need to do a round 2 because there's some holes where it's like, we never thought about that, or I added a service and now that opens up some other doors. But I have such a peace of mind knowing when I send that to somebody, like it's actually covering both of us. So this is a good thing for both. You're going to able to hold me accountable because of this contract.
Yes, absolutely.
That I'm going to do for you. And now we're contractually obligated to you and vice versa. So it's like, it feels good. Now we're set. And also it's a way, like if someone is resistant to signing a contract, whether it be another business or a friend or family, that is a red flag.
Yep.
So you're weeding out a potentially bad situation just from that action.
Right. The best time to sign, like, let's say you're partners, and you go open up a partnership, business, and we're friends, we're family, we don't need all that. You do, because that, where arguments happen and fights happen is when the expectations aren't clear. So, I had a business lawyer tell me one time that they have people put like, back in the day, like where the checkbook was going to be, because they've had, other business clients that fought over that. And that ended up being a thing. And it was like, well, there's nothing in the contract that says who's going to be the keeper of the checkbook. And now here we are fighting over it, so just the minute things, because you just never know what's going to cause a dispute. And again, like we were saying earlier, people dig in.
Certainly.
Yeah. and everybody thinks they're right.
Of course. Of course I'm right. Always. Well, I appreciate all that insight. We've reached a really fun part of our program today called the rapid fire. All right. So the rapid fire is for me to ask many of our guests the same questions, see the similarities and differences. And so the goal is for you to answer them as concisely as possible. Although I know you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
So that might not be the easiest task, but if you need to expand on something, it's all good.
Everything will be, it depends. That's my answer to all.
It's I don't recall.
I don't recall it. Yeah. Plead the fifth.
Uh-huh. All right. So you ready?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Number one, what's your biggest source of inspiration?
My brain, my own brain.
Hey,
What does this
I
mean?
think that might be a first, but it makes so much sense.
It goes
I
a
like
million
that.
different ways. It goes in a million different ways. So it's a sponge. So yeah.
That's great. Honestly, it's you. I inspire myself. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. I was wondering if it was going to be like a pet, but
No, I thought about it. She inspires me to do some things. We only have one right now, but yes.
okay. Great. You had mentioned a book before, and we'll have that in the show notes, The Freedom of Speech for Me and Not for Thee. I would imagine maybe that's not your favorite book. What is your favorite book?
Wicked. The book.
Like what the play is?
No, so it was based on a book written by Gregory Maguire, who started out writing children's books, and then he wrote adult books told from the villain standpoint. So Wicked is one of them. It's very political. It's thick. It's nothing like, I like the play too and the movie. It's nothing like that. It's much deeper and political, and yes, but it's actually kind of a slog to read it, but it's very cool. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah, he also did ones from like the Ugly Stepsister's point of view, and the witch that gave Snow White the apple, and yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah.
There's the plays or movies or shows never do the books justice. It just like there's so much more meat in the books, or you can't cover all.
It's hard.
in the
It's
movie.
hard. Yeah.
It's
Well, and
a
it's
difficult task.
it's a different vibe. It's a completely different vibe. It's just they went in a different direction. Yeah. Which is
For
cool.
me-
That's why I like them both. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun to indulge in both. Like for me, Carl Sagan's Contact, the book is really powerful for very particular reasons, and the movie just totally blew over that.
Oh yeah, Jodie Foster. Yeah.
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 And it's not like the movie's bad, but when you read the book, you go like, you guys missed like the whole point. Because there's one seat on the ship in the movie, and the multiple seats in the book is where all the meat happens on who to set into the ship.
Well, that makes sense.
So yeah, but anyways, without spoiling it too much, I definitely recommend that book. But cool, great. If there is a person, dead or alive, that you could spend a full day with, who is that person?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
'Cause
Okay, that was quick.
He's just number one on my free pass list, so I'll just spend the whole day with him.
Okay, you got one of those there.
Intellectually, I think if there was one person who I don't already spend days with, because that's no fun, right? To say your husband or something. But yeah, I think it would be, a whole day. That's tough. Dinner is one thing, but a whole day, do I want to spend a whole day like with a politician or something? I don't think so. It would have to be somebody who I thought was just fun. I can't, I don't know. I don't know who that image is coming, to maybe I'm trying to think of like a celebrity who looks like they're a lot of fun, somebody like that. That would
Jack
just be
Black or something.
Jack Black, or somebody funny, somebody
That would be fun.
adventurous,
Right.
like in like Johnny Knoxville or somebody like that,
Oh man, yeah, that would be a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a great answer. Cool. But Tom Hardy first. That was
Yeah,
really
Tom Hardy, yeah.
all right. Good deal. As far as business tools, do you have a favorite business tool that helps you immensely? You couldn't go without.
Well, the first thing that came to mind is my staff, my team.
Yeah.
they are just the best, and they they're great. And I know everybody says that, but I actually mean it. But as far as an actual tool goes, honestly, my case management system, but I was gonna say like Calendly or something like that. Like
Right.
Calendar, because when I am left up to my own devices to do things, it's not good. So that sets out, the calendar, and then I have somebody who even oversees that on my team, because I
Right.
will double book everybody even on that. But yeah, something like that is takes it out of my hands and lets me do my thing. So Calendly is probably the biggest thing right now
Sure.
that can come to mind. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think you got on this podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I have been delaying that, and there's going to be a tipping point where I just got to cave, because you spend too much time also going back and forth, and then me looking at my calendar instead of like, just set these days, these times for open, and people can plug in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you can block it off, and you can have different days for different times. And that Calendly does so, and they have a really cool origin story too. But
Oh, really?
yeah, it's an immigrant from Africa, first generation American. I think he's first generation American, and built it out,
Oh,
Black owned and everything. Very cool.
neat.
Yeah, but he, but not he, they have it has a bunch of different tools now, workflows and all that. And I don't, my case management system does a lot of that, so I don't use it, but I keep meaning to go in there and play with it. You got more than one person on your team who does things. You can set up, this goes to them first, that goes to them. Yeah, it's very cool.
Sweet. Yeah, that's super powerful. Like, anything to save us time as business owners is essential, because it
Mhm.
gets hectic real fast. And
Right.
your calendar is so important. That's when you show up.
Yeah.
Like, are you showing
When you're
up?
supposed to show up.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you showing up for this recording. It's
Yeah,
important.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it is good, and I know it's hard because we're micromanagers. That's how we got here. We like to have control. So sometimes it's hard to delegate things, whether it's to a person or to a system. But it's for the best.
Yeah, I agree. Last one. You're doing great. How do you define success?
You know, um, Contentment is a word I like to use. So it is, I'm happy is one extreme, right? Or ecstatic or whatever, maybe it's even more extreme than that. But yeah, happy is one thing, not happy, unhappy, stressed is another thing. I might just like, I just want to be even keeled. I just want, I'm content. Things are good the way they are. And I'm, whether that's with my personal life, my work life balance, the business, and it's all three at the same time is freaking awesome. So, to me, that's when I can go like, it's all good. That's success to me.
Yeah, I love
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
There's no better feeling than nothing or not too much weighing on you at one particular
Yes.
moment over another. It's that evenness. I like how you put
Right.
that. That's huge, because there's so much going on.
Right.
So if you can find that smooth sailing through like all this stuff,
Right.
yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you have won rapid fire, so
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for participating. Um, we're gonna close it out with a couple things. So, number one, where does the Goodwin firm look like 5, 10 years? How are you looking to scale? Where are you?
And we are looking to scale. So what I would really like to do, because at this point we are one of the few animal law, pet law focused law firms. We do all kinds of businesses on the business side, but the non-business side is just pet law. And so and defamation. But so I would like to expand that, and honestly, I don't know if this will happen in 5 or 10 years. Well, hopefully at least 10 at my age. But
Mhm.
the is kind of, not John Morgan big, but kind of their model of expanding into other states, and using lawyers that are already there doing things, and maybe teaching them pet law and having them work as part of us, kind of a thing. So that's kind of a dream I have, because get calls from other states, and I can't, I'm just a Florida attorney. I can't do that. And everybody
Mhm.
here is, who's a lawyer, is just a Florida attorney. So I would like to do that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So, great to know that you have such, big plans. I love that. And I think the pet law aspect, as far as like business and like really playing on a unique part of the industry, I think that's great.
Yeah.
So I see you going,
Thank you.
far with that. Yeah. For people who are listening, whether they're another lawyer or looking to get into law, or not a lawyer or a business owner, young or old, what is a great piece of advice that you'd love to leave someone with that you resonate with?
I guess, yeah, read your contract. Yeah, yeah, if you wanna be a lawyer, please don't. A lot of lawyers tell people don't go to law school, and I say that jokingly, but no, I think it is a good
Mhm.
profession, but go into it with your eyes open. Don't go because you Legally Blonde's your favorite movie or, anything like that, or you think we all make a lot of money. We don't. We're not all John Logan. There's a lot of debt. It's hard work. It's a stressful job. It really is a stressful job. There are a lot
I
of
can't
lawyers who
imagine.
leave it. It's not, people don't like us. Um, so we see people at their worst most of the time. Whether it's a business case, a family law case, criminal, whatever it is, it's not your best day when you have to call a lawyer usually. So it's a stressful case, and there's a lot of secondary, trauma and stuff like that for people who deal with, really traumatic and emotional cases. Uh, so know what you're getting into, and you really should have a love for it. It shouldn't be because you didn't know what else to do, or because your dad's a lawyer, or because, you like to argue, or like I said, you like, lawyer movies. It should be something that, you really wanna serve people, and I think most lawyers do, despite our reputation, really wanna help people. That's really why we do this.
Yeah, from who I've interacted with, and you're no exception, I feel that, and maybe I'm drawn towards this kind of people, but it seems that way because there is so much baggage that comes with your job, like you said. It is stressful, just like thinking about being in your shoes, that's a lot to have in your mind when your head hits the pillow.
Yeah.
If, like criminal cases, I just can't I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. I took one when I first went on my own. I was a prosecutor in my early days, and I took one, and it was like a really
Uh-huh.
minor thing, and I couldn't sleep. I'm like, "This guy could go to jail because of me." Even though he was never gonna go to jail, it was like a probation candidate. But I'm like, "That's it. I'm not doing it." I thought I could do it because I was a prosecutor, but I don't wanna do the other side. It scares me too much. I'd rather deal with people's money, and, the pets get stressful too, though, sometimes. But yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Feels like you've hit like this nice like middle ground of like intensity and weight and helping people
Nope.
still and pets. So
Yeah.
I love that. Well, how do people get connected with you? What's the best way that people can hire you or just connect and get some questions answered?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way is you can go on our website. There's a schedule. I forget what the big button says. Talk to us, schedule something or whatever. And that's Goodwin, Goodwin dash or hyphen firm, firm.com. Or you could email our general info is a good way. So it's info@goodwin-firm.com. Our phone number is 727-316-5333. We're on Facebook and Instagram. You can reach out to us there. And then when you get a response back, it'll give you all the same information I just gave you. So that's really the best way to do it. And I think if you Google St. Pete dog lawyer, I think we come up to.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great keyword. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. Definitely at least my
definitely.
name. Yeah. St. Pete Goodwin dog lawyer will definitely get us up there. So yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Wonderful, cool, and, by the way, we'll have that all in the show notes for everybody to click or copy and paste or, reference, so, uh, April, really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, helping all these pets and people, so, it means a lot that you take your time to talk to me and indulge a bit, and, for you guys, the listeners, I really appreciate if you get this far in these episodes. It means a lot that you listen. I recommend when I stop talking, listen to our outro song. It's super cool. So, and guess what? That was written by us. So indulge all the way to the end. But also at the end, if you hit subscribe, hit like, and share it with people that you think would like this episode or other episodes, we really appreciate the support. It goes a long way. And let us know how it resonated with you. Any feedback or comments is always appreciated. And we love how these kind of moments land with people and or spark new connections or inspiration. Who knows what April just inspired someone to be like the most famous lawyer in the world coming up. You just never know. So, and if you have someone that who has a story of their own, let us know. We can put them on the podcast and they can share their journey. So until next time, this is Josh Naaman with Naaman Creative on the Naaman Creative Show. And just reminding you to stay curious, stay kind, and go hug your pet.